Today, the Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land and Justice is now called to order. Today is Wednesday, September 16, 2020, and the time is 5:10 p.m. Notices for this confirmation hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Thursday, September 10, and again on Monday, September 14, 2020. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Wednesday, September 9, and Monday, September 14. We have one confirmation today, and that is the reappointment of Michael J. MD, to serve as a member of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority Board of Trustees. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues here, starting with the Minority Leader, Senator Taitikui, and Senator Luis Muña. Thank you, Senators, for joining us today. Before we begin, Dr. I just want to thank you for your work at GMH during this pandemic and offer you our condolences on the nurse that was lost up there, and of course patients and all the staff that has taken ill to the disease as well. And I want to thank you again for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, so the reappointment of Dr. is for a term length of 6 years, from April 15, 2020 to April 14, 2026. And this appointment was received by the legislature. The reappointment was received on June 26, 2020, referred to the committee on June 30, 2020. I'm going to enter into the record some excerpts from the code governing the Guam Memorial Hospital's Board of Trustees. The board shall be liable for the negligent act of any hospital employee or officer if the board knew or had notice that said employee or officer was inefficient and incompetent to perform the services for which he was hired, or said board retained such inefficient or incompetent person after knowledge or notice of such inefficiency or incompetency. No trustee shall be liable for any decision made in good faith, non-malicious fulfillment of his duties. The board shall be liable as fiduciaries in the execution of their duties. The board shall be, no trustee shall be actively engaged in the selling of services or goods to the hospital without the express approval of the Board of Trustees. The form of approval shall be adoption by the board. There's another section in the code that talks about the composition of the board, and there are 10 members, but 2 of them are members representing the medical community, and all the members are appointed by the governor of Guam, and so Dr. is one of the 2 representing the medical community. There's also an additional section of the code that talks about no person shall sit on the board as a member who is an employee of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority. And so we're going to talk about that in just a little while. So, Dr. thank you again for accepting this appointment, reappointment, and for your service on the board in these past years. If you would like to testify or offer any remarks on your behalf, yeah, you're welcome to do so at this time.
Yeah, I guess I'll make this pretty short. I guess I wasn't really sure what to expect once I joined the board, but now that, especially with COVID going around, being on the board as well as being one of the active medical staff members, still being involved with bylaws and in the MEC at GMH, and now being tapped for the physician advisory group, it's all just kind of surrounded my world with COVID. So I feel like it's given me a lot of information, a lot of ways to kind of think of what ways we can help, maybe think outside the box. And so far, my experience with the board has been really engaged. I know one of the big things we were concerned about was that the board previously was just not making quorum, and I don't think we've missed a single meeting, save for maybe one of them right when the pandemic hit. And personally, for my subcommittee, joint conference of professional affairs, joint committee professional affairs, we're responsible for the credentialing, and not super glamorous or terribly exciting, but a few things that we did to try to kind of expedite and kind of make the whole process a little smoother. We kind of retooled the way that all the credentials, from medical records through the billing process, and a lot of physicians were being upset. So I heard that from the MEC, GMH side, and then from, of course, from the board end, because we're the fiduciaries, we need to make sure money's coming in. And so we just started our first steps and had our first meeting with Justin Prince and about tackling that. So hopefully the next time within, I don't know, I don't want to put a timeline on, but we'll be able to speed that along and make that a little bit smoother. So turn around, and ultimately what it'll do is it'll relieve physician headaches from getting called in, and we'll be able to recoup our charges a little faster. But that's not super exciting, I understand, but it was kind of a big deal for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. That actually is a very big deal, because that's one of the findings of the audits that have been going on for years. Is they need to fix that process. So it's great. And when you said that you have immersed yourself in COVID, I understand at high risk, and that I'm very glad that you have recovered very well. I'm very glad for that.
Yeah. You probably heard that I caught COVID as well, but there was a little bit of a silver lining in that I was able to go to Naval Hospital today and donate some plasma. So somebody else will hopefully not be bad.
Are they not accepting donations at GMH? Are they not accepting that type of donation at GMH right now?
They need a special type of equipment, and I don't think we have it at GMH. So it's not just a regular blood draw. The blood gets taken in and then spun down, and then it comes back. So a regular blood draw will take, I don't know, probably like what, 10, 15 minutes, but this was about an hour process.
Wow.
Yeah. But what I understand is that it'll be open for the public, or sorry, the stock will be available to the whole island, not just the military.
Great. Well, I'm glad you talked about the committee you were in. I was going to ask you about that and what you think they have accomplished. So thank you for that. And do you think the board as a board member, are you confident in the measures that have been implemented by the management at GMH in regular times and during COVID times?
In regular times, that sounds like so long ago, but the things that I really liked was that the management seemed to be way more proactive and involved compared to what I'd seen previously. And so that was, I think that really helped get a lot of the committees and meetings a lot smoother, because they would actually show up to meetings and we would have answers. For example, like MEC meeting, it was the first time I ever seen the CEO show up or the medical director show up for it. So we would have answers, and that would be very helpful. Once we got thrown into the COVID era, we just can't train for this, right? Everybody was just kind of learning on the fly. Now that we're about 6-7 months into it, I think overall, yeah, I think we were doing really well until recently, until the cases kind of started piling up again, and then the hospital looked. Now, I think that we're plateauing with the number of COVID admissions, perhaps, but we're still definitely not where we want to be, like we were back in April and May, right? And so I think with my position on the board and being on the physician advisory group, I would like to see maybe if there's some more different ways we can approach this. I mean, I don't think we've done a terrible job. I think we've done a pretty good job considering the limited resource that we have. But if there's a way to improve, I would love to find it. And I wouldn't like to be complacent and say, yeah, this is the only way we can do it. So it'll take some more discussion, and we would all love to be really processed, but I think it's going to take some time as we kind of poke and prod and figure out what's going to work for Island. But overall, I feel like GMH has done a pretty great job, especially Dr. Uggan.
I understand.
What about ICU?
What about for staff protection? Do you think, are you satisfied with the efforts?
Yes, I think what initially the concern was that COVID from the patients that were coming in undetected. In reality, it looks like what we're seeing is that once the virus took a foothold in the community, and now we had a very high prevalence in the community, it was actually more because of informal contact with the staff. Let's say when they're taking a break or having lunch, and so that's all the personal protective equipment and all the protocols were being followed really well. And once we realized that was the issue, then of course the everybody was informed, and and then all the departments took steps to kind of make people weren't congregating, spreading it out. Yeah, I think we're still have. I think the numbers were about close to 40, maybe more, total staff that had that contracted COVID. Thankfully, for the most part, they've been pretty okay. I mean, of course, we've had a couple that weren't, but.
Do you think the board is active enough in deciding priority use of funding?
It comes up to us. I think maybe Byron Evaristo of the financial group probably has a better pulse on that. But it's funny that you mentioned that. I think I was doing some thinking after our last physician advisory group meeting, and was wondering if although we've been meeting very regularly and haven't missed meetings, it might be, and I haven't discussed this with the rest of the board yet, but it might not be a bad idea to meet a little bit more frequently and just make sure everybody's very well versed on the hospital's response, and anything that we can do to help it, or any challenges, or we definitely hear the good stories that come through, but maybe it might be prudent to have maybe like a special meeting in between the regular meetings, just to get a better pulse on it. But I will have to bring this up to the rest of the board and see if they're all okay with throwing on another meeting. But I think it could have some value, yes.
All right, great.
So so for the question, yeah, I would say you can always do more. So let's see what everybody's personal threshold is going to be for that.
Well, yes. Well, what I was thinking is that the hospital had many challenges to begin with. And then, of course, the CMS, concerns. And I was normally going to ask you all about that. You know what I mean? Are we meeting CMS's requirements quickly enough? I mean, are you, is the board very actively, ensuring that? But of course, now that we're in COVID, I can see why more meetings might make sense, because you're dealing with the same things that you've always dealt with, plus. Yeah.
Yes. It's
kind
of amazing to think that we were talking about, we were working toward getting a new hospital. And then when COVID hit, it was like, well, we still kind of need a new hospital, but now we got to deal with COVID. So I don't know if you were able to hear, this is going to be a bit of a tangent. I don't know if you were able to hear Dr. Uggin's interview on KUAF the other day about how she was talking about the condition of the hospital. Of course, it's all something we're so very familiar with, but, still, the staff at GMH is still able to just push on through and do what we have to do what they have to do to provide service for the island.
Yes. And could you, if I could welcome Senator James Moylan. Thank you, Senator, for joining us today. If you could just maybe expand a little on, do you think that the board is effectively, or the management are effectively responding to CMS issues? And, are we bettering our patient care, especially that? Well, I guess it's hard now.
For the updates that we get, at least from the CMS citations that we get, from the reports and the updates that we get, it seems like, yes, the hospital is progressing along it, and they've addressed the CMS issues. As from what I can recall from the CMS issues, most of it was from previous kind of procedures and admin issues, and less direct patient care problems. So thankfully, from a patient care perspective, Of course, the structural stuff is a little bit different, but from a patient care perspective, it seemed like, it wasn't the main concern. But yeah, so it looks like that's, we're definitely going in the right direction. I don't know if there are any outstanding ones that we need to be aware of, um, but yeah, I think overall, I think so, as far as the CMS concerns.
Well, the patient care ones were on the front page of the paper not too long ago, regarding, the pediatrics, in fact, yes. And so, Dr. M, you're a pediatrics physician, and I know you have your own private clinic as well, but you also have a working relationship with the hospital. If you could just explain that and confirm that it meets the requirements of the statute, and that is that you're not an employee
yes.
of the
Yeah, I think this came up on my first confirmation hearing. So as a hospitalist, I help out and I take call for GMH sometimes. And so I'm considered a independent contractor for my term. So I think when we went through legal counsel last time, they confirmed that that wouldn't count as an employee relationship as I was an independent contractor. My time in the hospital has kind of decreased a little bit as my clinic has gone busier with as we do a little bit of COVID testing as well, and now just we've actually been able to establish more of a hospitalist program. So now we have 3 full-time hospitalists, and then so they'll take care of the patients during the day, and then now the community pediatricians kind of chip in and help at night. And so now I'm being one of those community pediatricians to help and chip in. One thing I was thinking though is, being an active staff member and being involved in the MEC and the bylaws has just been so useful and fit in finding out, how the hospital is doing, what the other department's concerns are, things that honestly, if I was just on the board and separate from that, I'm not sure I would really be aware of. And I know, or I think I know why you don't want a hospital employee to be a member of the board, but I think having an active staff member is actually a pretty great benefit, and might want to think about that down the line, for future board members that are supposed to be, the healthcare, the medical representatives.
I appreciate that, and actually, Dr. I would like to encourage that. We haven't had many recommendations from the medical professionals as to the hospital. We've heard from a couple. For example, Dr. Akimoto suggests that there are too many employees at the hospital that are non-patient care employees, and so I've raised this to the board, and other things. And of course, we've heard, trying to remember, prior physicians that were there have also brought up issues of management or even preference of certain physicians over others and other things. But because you are the medical representative on the board, I want to encourage you to please, if you have recommendations as to how to solve issues or to prevent even the appearance of what's bothering the physicians, I would like to remove that if we can. And so I would like your recommendations in that regard. And I think I agree with you. Your experience working there and having to deal with their protocols and everything and on the board. So I'm hoping that you might be just the right person to give me that type of recommendations. And you are in the physicians advisory group. I'm sure you're active in the physicians outside groups, and so you can hear their complaints. And but I would like your help to solve those if possible. All right, and I'm going to open it
major
now.
Thing that
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was going to say one thing that I've noticed that was really striking to me right when I got to GMH like 5 years ago, and now I'm realizing a lot of frustrations can kind of stem from this, is that GMH is still in a very analog system. We're not digitized, and means it takes a lot of people to go through and churn through this paperwork. So back on the JICPA committee, while we were looking at oh, okay, who are the analyzers? How many do we have? What are they doing? How does it get to the builders and encoders? It was all manual. People are just reading through and going through one by one, and it's slow, it's tedious, and we just don't have the infrastructure currently to say, well, let's just make it, everything like digitized and streamlined. And so I can say if we upgraded at least just that part of it, a lot of things we could at least feel and look a lot smoother and better. Let's just keep that.
Is the new EHR, electronic health record system, going to address any of that type of issue? I thought that's what it was for.
We hope so, but it hasn't gone live yet. And I think the go live date, because of COVID, has been pushed back. So, and definitely let's see, I've been in 2 hospitals in written training where they started rolling out the new EHR. When they roll out the new EHR, even the best EHRs, which I think they call it's Epic right now, there's a lot of complaining and a lot of growing pains before everybody gets accustomed to it. So even when we roll in that new EHR, I just want to prepare you. It's gonna feel slower at first before we speed up and then the efficiencies kick in.
All right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to open it up now to the Minority Leader, Senator Taitikui.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And, Dr. Once you get past the oversight chair, especially Senator Terlaje, she's very thorough. So now it's a breeze. Breeze. The rest of us, it's all good stuff. But actually, there is one thing, though. First, I want to thank you for willing to stay on this board and continue to serve. That says a lot about you and wanting to give to this community. So greatly appreciate you wanting to do that and serving. So I just have I don't know you personally at all. I remember seeing you last year. We went through this whole thing before and listening to what you had to say. So kind of keeping first, I love your hair. I've always liked how it's able to stand like that. I don't even use gel, but I don't think you even have to use gel for that hair. I know Senator Moylan's very wax. I'm sorry, it's wax?
I actually have to use wax. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know Senator Moylan's very jealous, so we all are actually. But so to get to know you just a little bit more, what would you like to see personally as a board member that you've had a chance now that you've had a chance now to sit on the board? What would you like to see personally done to improve at the hospital, like your pet project that you would like to see done?
Oh, my pet project. Well, definitely on a bigger scale, the infrastructure improvements, I think, is the biggest thing. I remember on the peds floor when today was a pretty rainy day, we would have rain coming down from the roofs, and maintenance would have to basically make a plastic chute so that it could all go into a bucket, and that was just how it would be right in the middle of the nurses station, and we would just kind of walk around giant puddles, and that was just the way things were, and I guess still are. And I get it, like the money is always an issue, and now that we're thinking, going to a new hospital, that opens up a whole new set of challenges. So, the infrastructure stuff aside, my pet project, I would love to really streamline the records and the billing. So one of the big things we get a lot of physicians flagged for, and we have these first notices if their records aren't complete, second notices, third notices, and then some physicians actually, we suspend their credentials for a little bit, or their privileges rather. And as we kind of start looking in, they would be getting notices for maybe small typos that really didn't affect, as a communication tool between other providers, and really didn't affect it as a way to send off for billing. So we wanted to, find a way to kind of streamline that. Oh, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Sometimes I guess using your video takes more drive, and if you need to turn it off so that you won't cut out, that's fine too. Yeah. Okay, now I think we might have lost. Okay, there we
Yeah,
go.
so that would be one thing I would really love to just. So that's one thing I would really love to just kind of streamline, because source of a big source of frustration for a lot of physicians at the hospital records, and I'm sure it's a source of frustration for the people waiting to get the charges back. So I think that would be useful.
Yeah, that's actually, thank you for that, and thank you for actually mentioning the infrastructure. I'm not going to extend this conversation with regards to the Army Corps of Engineers. If the board has had a chance to look at it, I'm hoping, now that I know you even spoke about it, I hope that's on your personal list of goals as well, to look at the Army Corps of Engineers report. And of course, there is a task force, that bill that I introduced and passed in the legislature, that creates a task force for the building a new hospital. So I appreciate if you can keep that on the radar, and make that a personal goal.
Will do.
Okay, and once again, thank you so much. Thank you,
Will
Madam
do.
Chair, for the opportunity, and good luck to you, Dr. M. My door is always open if I can be of any assistance. Okay.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Senator Muña, you're right. Nice.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm using my phone right now, so I got to find the screen where Dr. is on, so I can actually look at him when I'm speaking to him. So I just wanted to mention to Senator Taitikui too that even in your capacity as a part of the board for Make-A-Wish, as a physician advisory, that I've always told you that you always had the best hair in the entire board. And I wanted to make sure that you don't only have the best hair now, you have the best hair in Make-A-Wish as well. So I was. So you,
Thanks.
We have so many things that we involve ourselves in, and not just specifically in our work, but all of our community efforts, and I really want to thank you for reaching out to for as many opportunities for you to serve the community, and this is just one of them, as well as the Make-A-Wish too. So I want to thank you for that. But sometimes we can stretch, right? We stretch a little bit too far, and then we see that we could be overwhelmed. And so I just want to maybe just to ask you that, do you feel like continuing as a board for GMH, and then with everything else, that you can handle everything that is in front of you?
Yeah, I think, thank you. I appreciate that, because I've actually had to say no to a few things fairly recently, because I felt like I was getting too stretched out. One thing though is, we are kind of in a pandemic, and we are still, the island is definitely in a crisis mode. And so I don't know, I just have a very strong sense of obligation and responsibility that if I can do this, then I really should do this. We've had a couple people step down from the physician advisory group, and those meetings, they take a couple hours long, and our chat is always constant. It feels weird saying like the meetings are enjoyable, but it's not painful. The meetings aren't painful, and so the relationship at the board is pretty good. So but now, as I was saying earlier, it might be time to have a few more meetings if everybody else is amenable to it. But no, thank you. I appreciate that you're thinking about that about me. But yes.
Well, I mean, because you also have your life as well too, so you want to make sure that you have balance all around, right? And you kind of make control. And I think one of the advantages of having you on the board is that we have two doctors on the board, because you're married to a doctor too as well. So I keeps you in check as well too. So it's kind of nice that to have the both of you, period, to have you here. You could have chosen anywhere in the world to serve your expertise, and you chose here. And even through all inconsistencies and some of the issues that we have to deal with on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, you still decide to stay and serve. And so that's one of the things that we really want to appreciate you for doing. And I'm trying to think if I have any other questions. The Senator Taitikui said that, having Senator Terlaje as the chair for health, she's going to make sure that she covers all of the bases. And all I can offer you, just like the minority leader can offer you, is an open door. And if you have any questions or anything or issues, that you can come to any one of us. And so, just want to thank you again for continuing on with the board, and say hi to Dr. Amanda as well.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank you, Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Doctor. Just something really quick. You already made notion to it. The condition of the hospital. And we asked this, we had a recent meeting with some of the other doctors, and they also explained the same thing. But, what I really like to do is go into their hospital and take some pictures. But you're telling me that we have these water conditions that are still, it's like a waterfall, and they're basically at different levels of the floors and in the hallways. And I remember the old story or the previous situations where it was even raining inside the elevators. So if you're reconfirming for me that, is this all still happening? There's nothing new. Even though, and my point is, even though last year, your committee chair here, Senator Terlaje, worked hard to get us in on the budget, last year's budget, $10 million, that we're still wondering when in the world it's going to get to the hospital. So I'm hoping that as the board member here can help push that through, because even if we're looking at a new hospital, it's going to be down the line. And in the meantime, unless you guys all get rain boots when you go into the hospital for you and the patients, you don't want to be puddling through water, and today's weather is a good example. So describe to me, other than that one coming down on the floor at the nursing station where they funnel it, what else do you see with the water condition at that hospital, please?
Typically, the main ones are the big windows as you go through the hall. So my usual route when I go to the hospital, I always go to the OB ward, right, to see the new babies. And so after a really rainy day, we will see towels and gowns basically draped on the side because the water's coming in through the windows. And then up on the peds floor, or the old peds floor, because it's on the fourth floor, the top floor, that's probably why all the water was coming through. With the third floor, I don't really go there very often because it's the adult side, so I don't see that. And then also on the ground level, as you're walking in from the backside of the hospital, sometimes you could see some puddles there too. Yeah.
Okay, and your elevators?
The elevators, though, I believe they're all working now, and that was a very big deal. And you're absolutely right. I think the report that we got from the inspection was that it was due to a lot of water damage from the elevator shaft. But as far as I know, the elevators are working, so that's good.
Okay.
But I got stuck in the elevator at my very, very first day at GMH, so I never take the elevators.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Doctor. And Madam Chair, maybe that's something we can do a field trip if we have the right protective mask on there and take some pictures and get that money to the hospital. But thank you very much.
That would be great. Oh yeah,
thank you.
Love for you guys.
Yeah. So, Doctor, to follow up on those questions, first of all, the electronic health records, that was part of a CMS citation. That's how it started, I think. I mean, besides, just physicians recommending it and staff. But it was a CMS requirement. And so to update the electronic health record system, they had said they needed millions of dollars, I think 6 million at the time. And so we tried to get that. That was part of what that 10 million was supposed to be used for. But the hospital has represented to us since then that they have taken care of it. And they, in fact, said it would be implemented in December. So if it's not implemented now and it's been rolled back, what is the date that you expect it to be implemented? You think that's it's a COVID delay or some other type of delay?
I believe it's a COVID delay because what we need is the people from stateside to come out. And I think the travel became an issue. And so I think the last date that I heard was it went from December to February, but now we're looking more May. And the travel issue is going to be a problem because, even if we think we're taking flights in, but their company just doesn't want them coming out. I don't know if that's what's causing the holdup, but people don't want to. We're currently, I think, top 5 in the U.S., including territories, for COVID risk as a risk under stratification. So it's just not a very attractive place for people to want to come right now.
Okay, all right. Please keep me posted on that. What about, as Senator Moylan was talking about money for capital improvement projects, are you aware that there was no request from the hospital for money for capital improvement projects from the legislature? Now, I know that they've received, for example, $1.5 million of Department of Interior money supposed to be for the roof, but I'm hearing from you now that it's not done for sure. But they did not make any requests for capital improvement projects this year. And I just want to know if the board is aware, if they are aware of what's going on in these budget requests and if they are taking an active role in that type of thing. The financial management.
I hear the reports with the capital improvement projects with Trustee Davis when we have that part of in the board, but I guess we're not aware of things that haven't been requested. That's very interesting. Yeah, so I didn't know that it hadn't been requested. I just assumed, I think there was a budget hearing not too long ago, and I just, they present to us, these are the things we're looking for. We look it over and we're like, yeah, these are things we should ask for, and that's what I expect would have been asked for. Okay.
Well, I'm concerned because, of course, the patients see this and they see that it goes on for years and years. And then, so really everybody's looking at the board. Like if, either we're going to start, I don't know, it's the board that really, I think, has to be responsible for that. Or I don't know how we're going to be able to answer to these patients. But the Army Corps of Engineers also made it very clear that you had to fix certain things. It had to be done immediately. They even prioritized it for GMH. And so that's another thing. I mean, how active is the board in kind of following up on that regularly? And are these being done? Because that was what everybody put it off because, they said, oh, why don't we just wait until the Army Corps does their assessment instead of investing any money in it? But that's done now. There's no such excuse. So the Army Corps, in fact, reiterated, do it now, certain capital improvement projects.
Yeah, and so for the board, I'm sure Sharon, Trustee Davis has a much better pulse on that. We get it after it comes into her subcommittee, and so the rest of the board members kind of hears, the summary report of it. But that's very interesting, and I would love to bring it up at the next board meeting.
All right. Yeah, I think I love the committee work because I've seen the reports from the committees are so thorough, and facilities committee does a very good job. But I just think, we need every trustee to be question a little bit more because we have to answer these questions for the public, right? That's really the goal.
Of course.
But all right. Senators, any more questions from the panel? All right, and again, please extend my thanks to everyone up at GMH. And thank you for accepting, again, to serve on this board, to put in the hours and to put in the questions and the review that has really been called for by CMS and by the people of Guam. So Thank you again, Dr. Emmett. If there's anything that we can do to help you, we will try, and we will take your recommendations seriously and try to act on them as soon as we can. So thank you again. We're going to
thank you so much,
Doctor. We're going to call this public hearing adjourned now, and the time is 5:50 p.m. Thank you again to the senators and to Dr. M. Take care.